Guns N' Roses has existed since 1985. As one might assume, from a group that has rocked for 3.5 decades, there have been a few lineup changes over the years. So who are these ex-Roses, and what are they up to? Let's take a look at what every former member of Guns N' Roses is doing today. Fans of hard rock are probably quite familiar with Tracii Guns. He was the original Guns N' Roses guitarist and also the Guns in the band's name, with the Roses obviously being Axl Rose. Guns left the band early on to form his own group, LA Guns, which has operated more or less consistently until this very day. Guns' 3.5 decades as a musician have left him with his own share of hard rocking hits and no less than 12 studio albums with LA Guns. Apart from that, Guns has also worked with several notable artists, including Motorhead, Johnny Thunders, Poison, and Wasp. Successful as Guns became in his own right, Guns N' Roses weren't exactly stabbed in the heart by the talented guitarist's departure. After all, he was soon replaced by a certain frizzy-haired, top hat-wearing guitarist known as Slash. Rob Gardner was the first drummer of Guns N' Roses. His train to stardom, however, was quickly derailed when love intervened. According to Tracii Guns, Gardner's girlfriend did not much care for him being in the band, so she forced him to quit early on. Unfortunately, she subsequently left him, and Gardner has not found his way back into the limelight since, despite Guns pointing out that he was a, quote, great drummer. Out of the original members of Guns N' Roses, the Danish bassist Ole Bike is perhaps the most tragic figure. Tracii Guns, who played with Bike in both Guns N' Roses and LA Guns, describes his old bandmate as a metal guy who had already played with Merciful Fate and possibly King Diamond. As such, Bike soon grew frustrated with the glam-tinted hard rock direction Guns N' Roses were taking, and he was the first, but far from the last, member to leave the band. According to Guns, Bike was about a decade older than him and a nice, helpful guy who was quite serious, yet had a wonderful sense of humor. Unfortunately, Bike went on to lead a rather painful life. He struggled with depression and ultimately met a sad end when he drowned in his native Denmark in the 1990s. Bike's family believed that he took his own life, although that assessment has never officially been proven. If you or anyone you know is having suicidal thoughts, please call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK. That's 1-800-273-8255. Izzy Stradlin was a founding member of Guns N' Roses, but over time felt as if his role in the band was diminishing. The public first discovered the situation in 1991 when the Don't Cry music video featured a sign that asked, quote, "Where's Izzy?" instead of the man himself. Stradlin left the band soon after this. Slash has stated that his former band member grew weary of touring and left the rest of the band hanging. Meanwhile, Stradlin says he was frustrated with the lax attitude of his band members and his old friend Axl Rose's increasingly bad attitude in particular. Regardless of what his real reasons were, the rhythm guitarist has remained a semi-elusive figure ever since. Stradlin's only band after his GNR tenure was the short-lived Izzy Stradlin and the Juju Hounds, after which he released 10 solo albums, the last of which came out in 2010. More recently, he's been in the spotlight because of his negotiations to rejoin the classic Guns N' Roses lineup keep falling apart. Even Rose has remarked that Stradlin is a notoriously tough guy to negotiate with. Drummer Steven Adler joined Guns N' Roses in time for their disastrous 1985 tour that involved a broken van and a stint at hitchhiking. He was around during the band's rise to success, but developed an addiction to both cocaine and heroin and started having problems with his playing. For his drug problems, he was ultimately fired in 1990. Adler, however, argued that the band deliberately made him play a song he hadn't rehearsed. As a result, Adler's drumming sounded bad, which gave the band a reason to throw him out. Adler has made bitter comments about his dismissal as recently as 2019 and reportedly considered suing at one point. However, he has remained friends with Slash and even took the stage with the band for a few gigs in 2016. Throughout the years, Guns N' Roses has gone through enough drummers to make Spinal Tap proud. Matt Sorum sat behind the drum kit after Steven Adler was fired and was eventually shown the door in 1997, courtesy of Axl Rose. However, Sorum wasn't about to start resting on his laurels. He has played with Velvet Revolver, The Cult, and Hollywood Vampires. In 2018, he also founded a crypto-based concert hosting platform called Artbit. Apart from his various ventures and successes, Sorum has also seen his share of the shadier side of life, which he wrote at length about in his 2020 book, Double Talk and Jive. Sorum claims his autobiography is, quote, the juiciest of the GNR books. As he told Spitfire Audio,
"We just stayed out on the road forever, which eventually practically killed us all.
Gilby Clarke took guitarist Izzy Stradlin's spot in 1991 after the founding member left the group. However, in 1994, Clarke discovered that he was no longer a part of the band when his paychecks stopped coming in. Slash assured Clarke that he was still in the band, but the paychecks never returned. So Clarke took the hint that he was fired. Despite the odd manner of his dismissal, Clarke says he holds no grudges. Rhythm guitarist Paul Hughes Tobias replaced Gilby Clarke in Guns N' Roses, which had huge implications for the band. Slash was not thrilled with Axl Rose's insistence on bringing Tobias on board, and his views about the new man's abilities were less than enthusiastic. This controversy played a part in Slash's departure from GNR in 1996. Hughes and Rose were childhood friends, which may have been a factor in the singer's insistence to bring him in, despite Slash's protests. Unfortunately for Tobias, even old friendship couldn't make him a permanent fixture in the band. In 2002, he was replaced by current GNR member Richard Fortus. Robin Finck first played guitar for Guns N' Roses from 1997 to 1999. He was a part of a peculiar recording lineup that included Axl Rose, Paul Hughes, Dizzy Reed, Josh Freese, and Tommy Stinson. Though Finck's time with the group was comparatively brief, a spokesperson for the label said they recorded several albums worth of material with Guns. Indeed, Ultimate Guitar also tells us he was one of the main contributors on 2008's Chinese Democracy. Finck later rejoined the band, only to leave again in 2008. His departure apparently came as something of a shock to Guns N' Roses, though he had a pretty decent reason to leave Rose's troops behind. That's because Finck also happened to be a long-serving guitarist for a little band called Nine Inch Nails, who were about to commence on a tour. As of 2020, he's still playing the sixth string for Trent Reznor during Nine Inch Nails concerts, so it seems like he made the right call. For some people, playing with Guns N' Roses is the highlight of their life. For Josh Freese, it was a Tuesday. Freese is a noted session drummer who had a 2-year contract with GNR from 1998 to 2000. Freese chose not to renew his contract because the band was pretty much buried in the studio abyss at the time. Instead of devoting his professional career to Axl Rose, Freese chose to work with pretty much everyone else. He's been a prominent member of A Perfect Circle and has at various points of his career drummed for Queens of the Stone Age, Bruce Springsteen, Weezer, The Replacements, Selena Gomez, Katy Perry, and Miley Cyrus, among others. Freese also has several world tours with Sting under his belt and keeps up with his punk side as a member of the Vandals. Oh, and just in case that hat didn't tip you off, he's also a longtime member of Devo. Tommy Stinson held the bass player position in Guns N' Roses from 1998 to 2014, when he semi-accidentally quit the band due to his failing marriage and hectic home life, which forced him to withdraw from touring. However, he says he doesn't particularly miss his time with the band. Though it was just fine with the people involved, he says that he's happy to have moved on. To be fair, Stinson has had his fair share of the rock and roll lifestyle. Even without the whole GNR gig, he's arguably better known for his lengthy tenure with the alt-rock icons The Replacements, where he played from the ripe old age of 11. Since moving on from that group as well, he's resurrected another old band, Bash and Pop. Chris Pittman joined Guns N' Roses as a backing vocalist, second keyboardist, and second bass player in 1998. However, he fell out with the band over money. By 2012, Rose reportedly owed Pittman about $125,000 for a year's worth of work. When Rose failed to pay on time, Pittman took him to court. They eventually reached a settlement in 2016, though the money Pittman actually received was significantly less than what he was seeking. Though Pittman was supposedly set to rejoin the band on his 2016 tour featuring classic era members Duff McKagan and Slash, his place was ultimately taken by current member Melissa Reese. This may or may not have something to do with the various acidic and extremely public remarks Pittman made about the 2016 tour, in which he referred to it as a, quote, money grab. Buckethead, the prolific guitarist who famously wears a mask and a KFC bucket hat on stage, spent 4 years as a Guns N' Roses member. He left to do his own thing in 2004, which reportedly may have had something to do with his frustration with the band's inability to complete an album. The masked guitar slinger has gone through some pretty tough times since. In 2017, the man, whose real name is Brian Carroll, gave a surprisingly honest, out-of-character interview for the Coming Alive podcast. He revealed that he had gone through a roller coaster of difficulties involving the death of his parents, a nasty back injury, and a condition that caused his heart to beat out of rhythm. Fortunately, Buckethead seems to be more or less back on track, seeing as he's been collaborating with his musical hero, the legendary funk bassist Bootsy Collins. In October 2019, they released a manic funk metal cover of Monster Mash of all things. Drummer Brian "Brain" Mantia is one of those guys who have played with pretty much everyone. He tends to work with cult characters such as Tom Waits, Primus, Godflesh, Praxis, and Buckethead. However, his accolades also include a 6-year stint with Guns N' Roses. Axl Rose invited the drummer in the band in 2000, and he performed with them until 2006. Though Brain was well known for his tenure with GNR, it by no means characterized him. A drummer's drummer and one of the premier drummers in contemporary music, he is an advanced music theory enthusiast who has released instructional DVDs and written columns for Drum Magazine. Oh, and you most certainly heard his work, even if you've never knowingly listened to any artist he's played with. Along with current Guns N' Roses keyboardist Melissa Reese, he's a member of Brain and Melissa, who have created music for movies, video games, commercials, and sporting events. Guitarist Ron Bumblefoot Thal first joined Guns N' Roses in 2006. Thal has said in interviews that he doesn't want to dwell on the negative sides of the job, but did find it difficult to fit into the group and even had to get a bit violent to initially gain respect in the band. He remained with the band until 2014, and though his departure was never officially announced, he says that his decision to leave was an extremely difficult one, and at least partially fueled by the knowledge that some of the best-known band members were planning a reunion. After leaving the GNR ship behind, Thal's official website reveals that he is focused on solo work, running music camps, and playing in a supergroup called Sons of Apollo. Interestingly, he also has a line of award-winning hot sauces. Chowhound ranks his ginger ginseng caffeine sauce among the spiciest in the world. DJ Ashba joined Guns N' Roses in 2009 and quit his tenure with the band in 2015. He said that he wanted to spend more time with his family and his other music ventures, though it may be worth noting that Slash's return to the band was announced the very same year. After he left the GNR solo guitar spot open for the more famous hat-wearing Shredder's grand comeback, Ashba has remained quite busy. He plays guitar in Motley Crue member Nikki Sixx's side gig, 6 a.m. Ashba's official website reveals that he has several other side gigs going on also. Apart from the occasional TV appearance and his upcoming band Pyromantic, he owns a company called Ashba Media, which specializes in building thematic designs for entertainment and hotel industries.